I knew at this moment in time that what I was looking at here, for me, was the source of all creation. You know, this is God. This is where it all happens. This is where it all starts, from this tunnel of white light, and not the image of God that I would have expected to have maybe met. You know.
Would you like to start by just sharing your near-death experience story with us?
Sure, I will do. My story started after a freak accident where my coat had got caught in the doors of a departing train when I was seeing a friend off at the station, and there was no way I was going to be able to get that coat free. I tried everything, of course, and so I realised pretty much at that moment, as the engine started to rev up, that I figured this is it. I thought I was going to die. And so it was like I was literally staring death in the face, because I could see in the eyes of my friend who was seeing off, she was looking through the glass back at me, the same sort of look of horror in her face. So the train pulled off, and I lost my footing, and I got dragged along the platform, and then I eventually got pulled between the edge of the platform train and then the speeding train itself, and went right under the wheels. And I was fully conscious throughout the whole of this, because I went into a fight or flight mode and decided to fight. And I really felt like, flesh and bones against this huge mechanical beast, as it now appeared to me. And I was tossed around relentlessly like a rag doll, from pillar to post. And I suddenly hit the ground, and I was laid between the tracks as the train was still continuing on. And it was all very violent and all very horrific. But I managed to keep my calm, and I managed to think my way through this whole process, even though it was all happening in seconds. It was like time. It wasn't slow motion, but time was stretched. It's a really odd concept, but I've since learned that happens to a lot of people who are in situations where they're literally sort of looking at, they could just die at that moment. But the train eventually did continue on down the track, and it kind of went off, and it went from all this sort of horror and darkness to sheer peace. And I remember lifting my face and looking up and just seeing this beautiful blue sky, not a cloud in the sky. And I'd never felt so in touch with the earth until that moment, and it just felt brilliant, just to look around and absorb the nature surrounding me, and that I was still here and I'd survived it. I couldn't believe it, because it had all happened so quick. So the emergency guys arrived really quite fast, and somehow they got me onto a trolley, started cutting through my clothes, and got me into an ambulance. And then we sped down the highway, a 20-minute journey, until we got to the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, there's a whole team of medics waiting for me, and I could hear a lot of tension and worry and concern in their voices, even though I didn't know what the heck they were talking about, because it was all fast and it was all science, But all I knew was that I was losing blood, a lot of blood, and that was pretty apparent to me. So I kind of figured it's not over yet, that I might not make it. My family arrived, and they were in the hospital, and they came in, and the consultant, the surgeon who was working on me, said, "Look, your family are here. Would you like to see them?" I said, "Yeah, please send them all through." So I remember my mum and dad coming up, and my parents being in tears. Well, my mother was anyhow, and my friend Anna, who I was seeing off, was also there. So I just wanted to talk to her, because I felt this connection that we'd just been through this together. It wasn't just me who'd had to face all this. And she was just shaking her head in total disbelief as she looked at me. And she said, "I can't believe you're alive. They told me you were dead. I thought you were dead. They announced it over the speakers, at the next station." But there you go. I was there. I was alive. But suddenly I left my body. I left all the pain, and I left the franticness of the hospital, and I was suddenly in what seemed like a darkened room, I figured at first. And I looked around to get my bearings to see what was going on, and I remember I saw these beautiful orbs, these colors of ambers and greens and yellows and gold and red, all just slowly pulsating all around me. And they made me feel safe and they made me feel secure, because I figured at this point that that I hadn't made it. I figured, this is it. I am dead. I really am. I'm on the other side of life, and this is where we go. I didn't fight it. I didn't fear it. I know I've read since, because obviously I've done a lot of research into NDEs, and some people do. Some people try to resist it. They feel they've got too much to live for. They've got kids and stuff they want to come back for. But it's not as if I wanted to die. But I was so happy to be in this beautiful space after what I'd just been through, that I just kind of went with it. Well, I did go with it, and I just kind of laid my head back, and I thought, I'm no longer laid on this hospital trolley at all. It felt like a rock, and I looked, and it was like this huge big slate rock. It was like I would describe it as being like a medieval altar that you might see in some epic movie, and there I was laid out on this thing, and I was no longer clothed, but I was just covered in this beautiful blue sheet, like a satin sort of silky texture to it. And this sheet comforted me and made me feel really, again, kind of safe where I was. So I just laid my head back on this huge rock and felt remarkably comfortable, and despite the fact that it was just a slate rock. And I looked up into above me, and what I could see were 3 grids of white light were slowly closing in on me. And those grids of white light were so bright and white and pure that I just couldn't take my gaze away from those grids. Despite the fact that it was so bright, normally you wouldn't be able to look into something that bright with the human eye, but in this sphere you could. And I couldn't take my gaze away, because it felt like I was being healed by this light. So I just kind of bathed in this beautiful light and ambience, and for some time, and then I suddenly felt the presence of somebody near me. I felt like somebody had arrived at the scene. So I slowly lifted my head and looked, and just beyond my feet there was a person just stood there, just smiling and gazing at me. And this person, I felt like I knew this face. I thought, I know you, don't I? And in fact, I kept saying it. Who are you? I know you. And he or she, because this person was totally androgynous, was just staring back at me, wearing a simple black contemporary t-shirt, and with this kind of pure white blonde hair, and this skin that was like glowing light from within. It was just like this amazing sort of pureness coming from this person. And I felt safe with this person. I felt like I was being guided, like this person was the keeper of my soul, if you like, at that stage, which was really comforting. And I thought, this is really beautiful, this realm I'm in, and if this is death, then it's really, really, it's not what I'd expected it would be. Not that I'd really thought about death that much, but there I was in a beautiful sphere. I laid back my head for a little while longer, and then I did realize that there were more people that arrived at the scene, and I opened my eyes, and there were 2 female forms either side of me. And I realized they got their hands just slowly kind of going over my body, just slowly kind of going over my shoulders and arms and everywhere. And they were, the girl to my right, she was sort of quite European looking, with hair very similar to yours, actually, sort of long brown hair. And the girl to my left was more Asian Indian, Brazilian, or American Indian even. I couldn't quite figure, but that's how she looked. And she was wearing a more traditional style of dress. But ultimately, they were there to sort of to heal me. They were giving me this form of healing, which I could only describe as being near to spiritual healing or Reiki healing, It was kind of hands-on, but the energy that was coming from those hands was just like, it was just making my whole body feel like the sensation of real strong, powerful, unconditional love that was just going throughout me. And I thought, well, it feels like they're healing all the wounds that I just received from the accident. But there again, I looked at my body and everything was back in place. I mean, my left arm had been severed and cut from the elbow down, but there it was, completely healed, not a scratch. So it also felt to me like they were healing all the wounds that I had received to my soul, if you like, throughout all my years, like we all do. You know, all the sort of baggage that we call it, that we carry with us, was slowly being peeled off me bit by bit by this energy that was coming from the hands. So again, I laid back and just and allowed all this to continue and to happen, just because it just felt so right and so beautiful. And I started to think about my family, because I obviously I'd seen how distraught they were back in the hospital, and I thought, well, clearly I'm dead, and they're going to be really pretty cut up now. So I lifted my head, and I remember trying to ease my way over the edge of this huge rock, because I figured if I looked down to my left, I would see them, and that's what I hoped for. But that didn't actually happen. But what did happen was I suddenly was gazing into a huge waterfall of stars, and it was like an awesome sort of sight, because it was like the size of Niagara Falls or what have you, a really huge waterfall. But instead of tons of water spilling over the edge, there were millions of stars cascading and sparkling, and it was just beautiful. And I could see shooting stars as well, just kind of slowly going over the top, and I looked down, and as I looked down, I felt as if, well, not felt, I knew that I was looking into one galaxy and then into another. And as my gaze became sharper and sharper, you know, I could see all these beautiful nebulas, all these colors appearing, and I was looking into infinity. I was looking into the whole universe. And in fact, I realized that I was actually now at this point in the universe itself. I wasn't in a darkened space. So that was like incredibly exciting, and I felt very much a part of that universe, and it is, and still do actually. So that's one thing that stayed with me. But as I pulled myself back over, it was interesting. I said to myself, okay, well, I can't see my family, but they're going to be okay, because they're going to be coming here at some point. They're going to be experiencing all this beauty and all this wonder that I am. So it's not the end for them. So I got over it really quick, which is very unlike me from old, because I carried a lot of guilt and shame and worry. But I had none of that at all. There was no feelings of that. I was literally, the past didn't matter anymore. The future didn't matter anymore. All that really mattered was that I was in this space, and it was beautiful. And I suddenly realized as I lay back down again that this energy that I was still feeling from the hands of the healers was now getting stronger. It had suddenly turned up like somebody had just turned the dial up big time, you know, and I thought something's going on. And I looked, and just beyond the being who was stood at my feet, who I'd first seen that greeted me, was this huge tunnel of white light. And this tunnel of white light was just coming towards me. And the intensity of light that was coming from the middle was just so profoundly beautiful. And I looked in awe, because it was surrounded by all these flames that were slowly circulating all the way around. It was very powerful, very epic, and almost frightening. But I felt no sense of fear there. But it would, any other place, it would have been like, oh, what's going on here? But all I felt was excitement, because the energy that was coming from the center of this light was causing every molecule of my body to vibrate with this sensation of love and of being. And it was just beautiful. So I knew at this moment in time that what I was looking at here for me was the source of all creation. You know, this is God. This is where it all happens. This is where it all starts, from this tunnel of white light, and not the image of God that I would have expected to have maybe met, you know, on the next plane, which would be, you know, as we as most religion forms are, yeah, it's a human form. It's the, in Christianity, it's the guy with the long beard, on the ceiling of the Vatican in Rome. But no, it was this huge tunnel of white light, and so once I'd had this realization, it was just so profound, and I remember just laying my head back, and I remember laughing to myself because I thought, this is incredible. This is all these beautiful wonders, and this kind of tops it all. What it did, and it was at that moment that I suddenly came crashing straight back into my body, into the hospital, and straight back into the pain and all the franticness and the lights. I remember the fluorescent lights were just like, I couldn't look into them. It was just too much to handle, and the noise was just like overkill. And the pain was immense because I'd been used to not having it. So yeah, there I was.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, David. Now, when you came back, you discovered that you had some new gifts and abilities, correct?
That's right. Yeah, I did do. Yeah. It was pretty soon on, because what happened was that when I come back, I was still in the emergency department of the hospital, and then they took me into the operating room pretty soon afterwards, and then they operated on me for about 8 hours. So after that operation, I remember coming back from the anesthetic. It was pretty heavy, lots of anesthetic, obviously, and they'd given me my own room in the hospital. So I was just in there with this kind of machine bleeping. It was like that became my little pal, my friend, like R2D2. And I had a lot to contemplate. First of all, I contemplated what I'd just been through with the accident, because that was so horrific. I had to deal with that. But ultimately, I was just thinking about the NDE, because I knew nothing about near-death experiences at that point. And I thought, how am I going to tell people about this? And am I going to forget it? This is so important. I've got to tell everyone. So I decided there and then that I thought, I know what I'll do. I'm going to do a painting like those big epic paintings that you see in Rome, like all the Renaissance biblical scenes that were really powerful. And I'd never done anything like that before, but it didn't matter. I thought, that's how I'm going to tell everyone. So yeah, once I got out of hospital, I started straight away. I got myself a big canvas. I mean, I was apprehensive about starting it, because I thought, I can't afford to mess this up. This has got to come across right. But once I started painting, it was amazing. I suddenly realized that the paint that was going onto the canvas was coming together really well. There was no sort of struggle. It was just like, it was one of those things where it just started to evolve. And I knew pretty much straight in that it wasn't just me that was putting this canvas together on this. I was being helped. I was basically channeling ideas through. I felt like I'd still got a very strong connection with this other realm that I'd been to. So they were giving me help to paint. And so from that point onwards, I just couldn't stop. I was prolific. I was just doing one painting after another. And, I wanted to, reflect what I'd seen and what I'd felt and what I'd been through.
And you also came back with musical abilities. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I did do. Yeah. That came a little later on, not too much later on, just a few months on, because basically that came because I discovered I was just determined to track down a spiritualist church, because I knew there was one near my sister's, where I was recovering in Cambridge in the UK. And I found that church, and I went in there, and they said, listen, we do spiritual healing here. You look in a pretty bad way, which I was back then. And they said, we could help you out if you're interested. She said, yeah, great. Sign me up. So I went in, and some of those healers were clairvoyant, and they would give me messages and say, look, just basic small ones, like what the energy they were seeing as I was being healed. But they started to talk about, each one of them was saying, I'm seeing a violin laid across your chest, or I'm hearing Beethoven and Wagner. And I was going, I can't take that. I don't know. No idea. And then one of them said, they're telling me you're going to write a piece of music about your experience. And I went, great. So I went home and I got this old cheap old synthesizer at the loft and adjusted it down and started playing like with one or two fingers on that because that's all I could do. And nothing was coming because I thought it was going to be a song that I was going to write about it, but nothing happened. Then all of a sudden, this chord structure came, and it wasn't me. It was certainly coming again from another place. And I loved this chord progression. And all I got was a cassette recorder, and I just built it up and up. And I thought, this sounds like it should be played by an orchestra. It's not, not really a song. So there was a lot of synchronicity seemed to happen for me after my NDE. And part of that synchronicity was that I met a cello player from a local orchestra in Cambridge, and we became good friends. And she was quite spiritual as well, actually. And she said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "I'm just working on a new piece of music." And I said that it feels like it should be played by orchestra. And she said, "Oh, maybe we could perform it one day." And I thought, yeah, why not? So I got the same ambition, and just like with the paintings, I thought, let's do it, let's try. So my brother, he said, "Look, I've got this piece of software that you can have." And he said, if you can attach it to your computer, and when you'll have to buy a different keyboard, but when you play the keyboard, it will transpose it into musical notation, because I can't read or write music even now. And so that's what it did, and that's how I managed to get the parts together for the orchestra. And then they said, "Yeah, we'll do it, we'll perform it." So they did, and it was a tremendous success. It was the whole piece was based. It's called The Divine Light, and it's based on my near-death experience. And in the end, it had 3 movements to it, and it's again, I was being helped not only just with the composition, but with bringing the whole sort of performance together. Because I remember that the orchestra said, "Oh, would you mind saying a few words to the local press?" I said, "Sure." So I did do, and they said, "Oh, you're the guy who went under the train." I said, "Yeah." And so they said, "You're going on the front cover." I thought, brilliant. So from that on, the phone kept ringing, and then the BBC got in touch, and then they came and filmed the orchestra performing in a rehearsal. So the concert sold out 2 weeks in advance, which was like amazing. So it's interesting because I never had any sense of ego. There was no sense of great, everyone's going to think, "Oh, I'm amazing." It was all more like, I thought, brilliant. There's going to be more people here, hearing what it's like to venture into the other side, because I just wanted to try and talk through all different dimensions that I could possible, which is either art or music. So it was a beautiful concert from that point of view.
That is incredible, David. I was looking up some of your artwork this morning, and I came across your piece. I think it's titled, what is it? The Tunnel of White Light. It's so beautiful. And just, wow. I just want to say thank you for bringing that through your paintings and your music. So were there any insights that you received when you were on the other side that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, I did do. One of the main insights that I brought back with me was that, as I said earlier, there was no past and there was no future. Time didn't exist, which was fantastic because I was in the moment and I was able to stop. I realized that I'd spent the whole of my life worrying about the past or worrying about the future and hardly thinking about that the present was okay and it was all right. So that was one of the biggest things I brought back with me. But I suppose really the most important thing to say that I did bring back was that we are all loved, that I'd never felt that sensation of love that I'd got in that moment. Obviously, I'd been loved by my family and I'd had relationships and I'd been loved there, but this was a different type of love, and it was unconditional love. And it made me realize that once I came back from it, that I couldn't afford to forget that, and I couldn't afford to let go of it, and so I haven't done. And that's really helped me because I began to realize that I could love myself for the first time in my life, and it's I know it's easier said than done for a lot of us, but that's the most important thing, to know that we are actually all loved, and that we can find that love within ourselves. And when we do give ourselves a break and say, look, it's not your fault, you haven't messed up, it's brilliant, because you start to find that self-love, and then you find self-belief, and then you find that your authentic goal and where it takes you. Like I did, I'd never thought I'd be doing classical music for orchestra. I never thought I'd be doing paintings, but it came to me because that was meant to be my organic self was coming out for the first time, and stuff. So yeah.
What would you say is the purpose of life, and what are we doing here?
Well, this is we've been given a really wonderful opportunity, I believe anyway, and that is that the Earth is far more beautiful a place than we give it credit for, just because we're used to being here. And that's one of the things I remember when I came back. I just start to look around and appreciate the beauty of it all, and it really is heaven on earth. All the changing seasons, the colors, the beauty of it all. And in fact, I started watching documentaries on astronauts, US astronauts coming back from space, in the 1970s or what have you, to see what their take on going out into space is. And I thought it's quite interesting, because these guys are scientists at the top of their game, so they're not really going to be that spiritual. But some of them were coming back, and they were getting quite spiritual from just from what they felt, the profundity of being out there. But one of them turned around and said, which is absolutely true, this is what I felt, he said that when he came from the moon and came crashing right back through the atmosphere, he suddenly said, wow, the Earth was like heaven. He said the Earth was this ball of color and beauty, and so there you go. And it is, it's all there.
That's beautiful. What would you say to people who would like to connect with the light or the divine presence here? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, well, I would say there's two ways to do it. Well, for me, basically, one is through meditation. I find that through meditation is great, and also through, for me, spiritual healing. I have spiritual healing still to this day, and spiritual healing is it's really quite a calm process. It's literally, you would sit down like I am now, and I have one person healer behind me with their hands on their shoulders to start, and another one in front, normally sat down with their hands on my knees to ground me. And I just go into the moment, and I just kind of that is the closest I come to feeling that sensation of being back in that realm. And I find I go every week for spiritual healing, and that's, I just feel the energy's coming through them, and they notice it themselves afterwards, because it's, we will finish the healing session and we just sit and we don't talk for about 2 or 3 minutes, because we've all been through this profound experience, because the energy that is being conducted from their guides or my guides through their hands and through me, and it's amazing. It's something I'd highly recommend. But meditation is something that we can all do at home. But the thing about all these things like meditation and spiritual healing is to not try too hard to worry about it, because we all think, no, it's not happening for me. I'm doing meditation and nothing's changed. We just kind of figure that there's going to be like this big shift, but it will suddenly come to you, and you suddenly realize that you basically stopped, and you've cut all your concerns, all your worries out. You've cut the noise of the world out, and you're suddenly in this space, and that's when you know that you're getting close to the light.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I'd never actually heard of spiritual healing before.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
can people look up online and find somebody maybe who does it in their area?
Yeah, most certainly you can. Yeah, there's actually, I'll see if I can find it for you, but there is a link that you can go to in the UK and the US as well. And it will have it's almost like it'll have a listing of spiritual healers near you. So you can literally put in your zip code or your postcode, as we say over here. And then it will say, it'll give you a lot. In the UK, they're mainly in spiritual churches, spiritualist churches, but I don't know how it is. Yeah, but there are plenty. There's plenty of, and also just to point out that these people they have to qualify to do this. They have to sort of take they have to go through a process of being trained how to do spiritual healing, and also they get a certificate to show that they are qualified to do it, because it's they take it very seriously, and it can also, for me, because I had it, as I say, after my accident, and it not only healed my mind and my anxiety issues. I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder from the accident, so it helped me with that. But you know what? It helped me physically with my recovery. I was going back in and out for appointments with the surgeon 3 times a week to start off with, and having all my dressings changed. And he was going, you know what? He said, you're recovering at an incredible rate. And I said, yeah, and I know why. And then I started to tell him, but he's a scientist, so he kind of shut that down. So I thought, okay, but yeah, it helps. It can help you both physically and emotionally. So yeah, I recommend it.
I was listening to another interview of yours this morning, and I heard you make this statement. You said, I suffered from a lot of anxiety, and I've realized that doesn't belong to me. And that's I thought that was very interesting. What did you mean by that? That doesn't belong to you?
That basically we create stories a lot of the time in our lives from past experiences, and from my own point of view, a lot of it starts when you're really young. I'm dyslexic, and I didn't realize it at the time, so I was I was written off by a lot of my teachers as being a no-hoper because I was dyslexic. And they just said I was lazy, inattentive, and then started labeling me as being in trouble. And I thought, I'm none of those things. I'm not. I really want to learn. I'm not troubled. I want to do this. But as time went on, I realized that the door had been closed on me, basically. So anxiety and this caught up on me, and it just started to really take over my life. And I realized when I was in that other realm that, as I say, I was being told it's not your fault, and I felt like all these layers of tension and anxiety that I carried over the years were just being peeled off me, and I was down to the essence of my pure soul. And when I got down to the essence of my pure soul, I thought, you know what, I'm okay. I'm not that person. I'm not that bad person. I'm not the person who messes up all the time, or who doesn't want to try it, as all those other people had put there. So they created that story, which didn't belong to me. So I guess that's pretty much how I'm trying to put it. And 9 times out of 10, you'll find that it's like if people go to therapy. If you go and have some therapy, if you really stick with it and go in deep, you'll realize that your therapist will find that's exactly that same conclusion. They will turn around and realize that it's not your fault,
I would be curious to hear your thoughts on, I know this is a deep topic, but I ask most of my guests about this. What are your thoughts on judgment and hell? Do you think that there is judgment on the other side for some? And what do you think about the hellish near-death experience stories that we hear?
Yeah, I don't believe in the heaven and hell theory that's gone on for years. Where it's like if you've sinned throughout this life, then you're going downstairs, kind of thing. It's, for me, it's I've read, as I say, lots of reviews and reports on other people who've had hellish near-death experiences, and also they've had life reviews. A lot of people, people who really have messed up in their lives and haven't been too good, have been, let's say, bullies at school, or have gone on to unnecessarily kill people, in a war zone, civilians, and when they hadn't needed to do it, then they're not just going to. Those people have had to face up to what they've done, but it's normally in what's called a life review, and the life review is you literally. Those people that say in their accounts that they go through, they face those people that they bullied, they face those people and families that they killed, in Vietnam or whatever it was, and they have to kind of go through experience that those people feel, that they've made them feel, if you like. They have to go through it, and that's so it's kind of it's almost like a life review but they're not then suddenly said, so that's it, so that means you've got to go to hell. It's almost like it's a moment of redemption for them, and it's a brilliant course of understanding where you went wrong, because just to be able to be put in that other person's body or mind or soul and realize what they were feeling and what you'd inflicted upon them is really, that's the best form of punishment that could be dealt out, I guess, if punishment is the right word.
All right, David, let's switch gears a little bit here. Now, you've written a book. Would you like to share with us about that, and where people can get in touch with you if they would like to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, my book, as I say, I'm dyslexic, but I still was ambitious, and that came along organically. A friend of mine got in touch with me, and she said, "Oh, when you're going to write your story?" I said, "Well, there's no way. I'm dyslexic." And she said, "Well, how about I co-write it with you?" So that's how that came about. So that came out last year, and it's been really well received, which is fantastic, because again, it feels like another element of me being able to express my story through this book. It's another dimension, and it's called Shine On. And so you wherever you are in the world at the moment, you'll be able to buy it through Amazon for sure. You can order it, US, UK, New Zealand, Australia. It's also just come out in French language, if there's any French people who are tuning in. And so that came out last week, actually, in French language, and that's still called Shine On as well. So I'm very, very proud of that. But if you want to find out more about me, if you want to follow my social media, then you can find out what's happening next with me and all the different things, and look at my paintings. So I guess the best place to start is my website, because that's the starting point. You can find all the links there. So if you go to shineonthestory.com, that's the website, and you can also stream my symphony that I talked about, The Divine Light, for free on there, so you can listen to it to your heart's content, and look at some of the paintings, and then go onto the links, YouTube or Instagram and all those different things. If you fancy it, that'd be great.
Wonderful. I'm very excited. I'm definitely going to listen to your symphony. So thank you for making that available.
Of course, yeah.
I will also have all of David's links in the description, his social media, website, book. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we go?
I guess just, you were talking earlier about there's a lot of people feeling a lot of anxieties, especially over the last year, or 18 months, with the whole pandemic situation. But I guess looking back from what happened to me when this all started, I kind of felt like I could equate with it. It seemed almost like we'd all been given a chance to stop and reassess and regroup in our lives, and just think about where it's going to go next. And I guess what I wanted to say was that it's a huge challenge that we're going through. We still are, we're going to come out of it, but out of all huge challenges, that's where we find a real, true spiritual awakening. So that's the positive that we can all look forward to. That's what I feel. I feel very optimistic.
Thank you for watching and listening. Your views, likes, comments, and shares truly make the biggest difference in supporting this channel. Don't forget to check the show notes for all the links to today's guest, as well as my links. You'll find me on social media at Love Covered Life, my website, lovecoveredlife.com, and the Be a Guest link for anybody who would like to be a guest on the channel. I have great news. Love Covered Life podcast is coming available on audio podcast. You can find it wherever you listen to your audio podcasts.